Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are not live. This is actually an unusual circumstance for me, as for the first time in a while, I'm not actually going to be able to stream on a Saturday night. So, because at the time that this is uploaded, I will be away from town and away from my computer, my thinking is, I've got a fair number of videos in the reaction video backlog that need to be seen to, so my thought was, let's just go ahead and see what they have to say for themselves. Hopefully in an environment where if something goes horribly wrong like the last couple of times, I'll be ready to go. So, with that in mind, for those of you who are not in the Discord, link in the description, that'll be something you can look to if you want me to view anything on here. No guarantee that it actually makes it on, to be fair. That is my discretion based on whether or not I think I can meaningfully transform something by watching it. And so, we'll see what these videos have to say for themselves. So, the first of these is one we attempted to watch a while back, which is entitled Smoother Animation Does Not Equal Better Animation. So, I believe this emerged from a discussion that was being had from whether we prefer 30 FPS or 60 FPS. The context was primarily gameplay-wise, as for a bit of animation, I'm usually not going to be super picky about it because animation, the number of frames that are present are the number of frames that make the most sense for what you're trying to draw. But for a video game, I much prefer 60 FPS so that I know for certain, okay, I'm messing up, it's my fault, not the game. At least to eliminate one of the possible variables. There's no slowdown as a result of a frame drop or anything just of the sort. I know that it performs well, yada yada yada. So, this came out 3 years ago, so it's been a while, but if memory serves, there were a lot of, hey, look at this movie if you upscale, well, if you add in a bunch of extra frames to make it look buttery smooth. And there is a certain fascination that one can have from it, but at the same time, I don't know if it's necessarily practical. So, let's see what the video has to say for itself.
I'm mad. And bleeding. Tom and
Good
Jerry
job.
made 60 FPS using AI. Interpolating pixel art with AI. Even a simple animation can be made fluid and lifelike using AI. Boost your animation to 60 FPS. AI's Enhance. Animate to 240 FPS. What Mulan would look like in 60 FPS.
I think you can already guess what kind of impression this guy has on the topic. I believe this was as far as we went before technical issues compelled me to stop, so let's see what he actually has to say. Well, argument-wise, anyway.
5 million views.
You got 13 million over 3 years. Don't complain.
Just fuck it, right? I'm an animator. Why try? Press a button. It does it all for you. Hey Google. Animate this video.
To be fair, he jokes now, and this was before generative AI was beginning to become, well, to take center stage, but to be fair, I don't think generative AI is at the point where it could replicate this particular style, or would want to. So far as I can tell, tends to be fairly obvious when generative AI is used as of right now, because there's a certain look to how it handles shading and coloring and all that fun stuff, to where you know, okay, this looks like it was made by an AI. So you can generally tell, although if you can't tell, I suppose it's doing its job correctly. I don't know if it's necessarily at that point yet. Either way, I do feel bad for some people who are genuinely talented who make it forced out, but my feeling is, I see all the possibilities that generative AI create and think, okay, well, either adapt, learn how to either exploit it or play around it, or shut up. Because honestly, there's only so much that complaining into the ether will do for you, so may as well try and make the most of the situation, right?
Sure. Now playing sorry about your penis.
Oh, it's not what I just don't get it. I don't get it. This is the Mario in Unreal of animation. A complete slap in the face to the animator. I could give you several reasons. Hell, I could make a whole ass video about why this looks so bad. You know what? I think I will. I think I will. Because either I rant to you for the next 10 minutes to satisfy the goblin in my brain, or he's gonna tell me to do something far worse.
Alright, a bit self-indulgent. Get to the point now. See the frame rate correctly? Let me make sure that I've got that set. 1080p. interesting. They've got a 1080p 50. Well, let's go ahead and set it to that so that it's more obvious. I do have OBS set to 60 FPS, so that should work out well enough. Just make sure closed captioning is on, just in case. It is auto-generated, but hey, just in case it's not entirely clear. I think about the audio balance set right, but I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Come on. Fuck. Okay, let's just cover the basics. This is 24 frames a second. This is 48. Look close.
Yeah, I can see a difference.
Good job. Basically, unless you're watching a soap opera, a gaming video, or Gemini Man, most of the video you watch is displayed at the standard 24 FPS.
Well, technically slightly below that, but that's splitting hairs.
Now, 24 frames every second sounds like a lot.
It is.
Because it is.
Uh-huh.
But it's pretty rare for animators to consistently create a new drawing for every single frame. Even during the most complex and fluid movements, animators will often hang on a single drawing for longer than one frame. It's on screen.
Yep, and this is something that was discussed when I think I was asked to react to a video talking about, I think, Guilty Gear's style, where they were technically doing 3D animation, but they made it look like it was straight out of an anime because they used a lot of the shortcuts that anime used in order to try and ensure that, hey, we want this on budget and on time, so skip out on frames and only show the most important aspect. Really throw the animation budget into something that's going to receive a hell of a lot of focus. That sort of thing.
Screen for 2 frames, we call that animating on 2s. If it's up for 3, it's on 3s, 4s, and so on. There's a lot of reasons you might do this. Maybe you want to make two things feel different from each other, and a different frame rate helps to sell that. Maybe a low frame rate is part of the style. Maybe a character's movements are so far away that nobody's going to even notice. Maybe a choppier movement looks better with less frames. And I could go on, but you get the point. It's not just a compromise.
We did a lot of animation testing, and we found out pretty early on that in order to capture the spirit of the comic books, we'd animate on 2s, and sometimes we would hold frames for 2 or 3 frames.
When there's 24 frames a second, instead of doing all 24, you 12, and the mind fills in the gaps between them. It makes.
I think, didn't the Lego movie do something similar? I need to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that they did something with the frame rate to make it look like it was more stop motion, even though it was wholly CGI, apart from the one live action bit. Although saying that there is that one live action bit's technically a spoiler, but hey, the film's been out for years now. It's your own fam fault.
Makes it feel more graphic. There is a clarity and a crispness in that, so we latched into that as an aesthetic that I think made it feel more like a comic book.
And here's the thing. Just like animating on 2s or whatever looks fine if it's done right, animating at more than 24 FPS can look great. There's nothing wrong with having more frames.
Then where's the video gonna go?
When the artist intends for there to be. Yes, the issue at hand isn't the prospect of HFR animation. Instead, it's this shit-ass trend I'm seeing more and more of where some degenerate with Moonbrain will take a perfectly fine animation and remaster it, that is, stick it into an AI and press render, to create new frames in between the perfectly fine existing ones. This is widely referred to as interpolation, and not only does it completely fly in the face of artistic intent, it also just so happens to completely undermine several of the most basic principles of the entire medium of animation.
I feel like you're overreacting here, but we'll hear you out.
Seriously, there's like a whole book about this, written in the Middle Ages by the 9 guys. People call it the animator's Bible. Now, I'm not a religious man. The book outlines what we
Okay, that's a good punchline.
Called the 12 principles of animation. You got timing, staging, exaggeration, anticipation, straight ahead versus pose to pose, solid drawn, arcs, follow through and overlap, squash and stretch, secondary actions, appeal, and easy.
Why were you like this?
Internalize and remember all of that, but suffice to say, all of these principles are, in their own way, extremely important to the process of crafting a good-looking cartoon.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Ones that the AI completely fucking ignores.
I mean, it's AI. What are you expecting?
Are you beginning to see the problem?
Are you going to explain how it ignores them?
Side note, if you're an animator, you should seriously buy that book if you haven't already.
How old is the book? It wouldn't surprise me if that were the reason. Well, if the reason why it was so old was, well, if it were an old book, it would not surprise me if that's why it's in short supply. I've run into that with other material before. Okay, again, a bit self-indulgent.
That's expensive. I want to buy this book, but for not expensive. If only there was some kind of program that would...
Ah, this is where you get your ad in. All right, let's see how you play this out.
Siphon coupon codes into your shopping cart on Best Buy or whatever is also siphoning money into my bank account in exchange for promotion. Wow! Look how much my friend Brayden likes it.
Honey is real good.
Let's say I'm about
I'm kind of surprised that they approved that, so I'll give them credit for letting you be cheeky.
to give me a goddamn piece of pie from the company whose
All right, going for Papa John's. If you're going for any fast food pizza joint, I approve.
ex-CEO has been training for 20 months not to use slurs. That's
Oh yeah, that whole mess. Okay, that was the whole reason for the joke, wasn't it? I mean, to be fair, I prefer their pizza anyway, independent of what their CEO gets up to, but still.
real. Honey steps on up like, don't you dare pay full price for this. Now, I am paying less for my pizza. Incredible. 2 clicks and it's on your computer. How is this possible? We have gone too far. Nabitahoney.com/noodle. Why haven't you clicked it yet? Genuinely, why not?
Because I don't need it.
It is free, it is not selling your info, and it is save you money. Hobble on over to honey.com/noodle and download it before I take action. Here's an image of a little man. He's doing very well, and I'm proud of him. He will be demonstrating 2 of the most important fundamentals of animation.
For a second, I thought that was a continuation of the ad and you were going to smash him. Oh man, where's my mind going today? Well, tonight. You get my point.
Timing and easing. Say we want to get him from here to here on the canvas. I could manually hand animate the man on ones, or I could instead tell my animation software to do it for me by tweening or interpolating that movement. I
Yep.
give this
I've dealt with a little bit of animation software as part of something I was teaching, funnily enough, and I am familiar with this process. You see it, I think I'm trying to think, let's use this. So, I'm not going to use that reference, but there are some things, I think if you're doing Flash animation or Toon Boom Harmony, there's this particular style of 2D cartoon where you notice, oh, they're using a lot of interpolation where it tends to be fairly smooth as one piece is moving to another. And whenever you see that, that's usually a result of programs like this.
saved myself a lot of time by doing this. And the only catch is that, well, it looks like a computer did it. But why though? You see, when you ask a computer to make a guy go from here to here, it sure is gonna do it, but it's gonna do it in the most simple and efficient way possible.
Well, yeah.
Perfectly even, steady all the way, boring, lifeless.
Again, though, as you've mentioned before, that's okay in certain circumstances because, hey, sometimes you don't need anything super complex. You can just have a basic walking animation for someone in the background and not have to think too hard. For someone in the foreground, though, yeah, if they're in focus, definitely don't just do that. Unless you don't mind being a lazy bastard.
This is exactly what the fucking AI is doing. And unless you're literally animating a robot, you would never, ever animate something like this.
And even if you're animating a robot, if you're in a cartoony style, that wouldn't necessarily make sense.
Cause it doesn't look good! I can tweak this motion and clean it up by hand using the interpolated frames as a base.
Okay, doesn't look good as a bit of an exaggeration. Doesn't look as good as it could be would be a better way to frame it, but then again, that doesn't give you your snappy, angry nonsense. Yeah, I'm probably ragging on the presentation of this video too much. I definitely understand being annoyed at it, and I appreciate the enthusiasm, but still, chill.
Baseline, and this approach will probably still save me some time, but that's my point. The tool helps, but I'm not a... Well, I am a tool, but I'm the one giving life
Okay,
to what would
good
otherwise
joke.
be a lifeless motion. These 2 boys are going from one extreme keyframe to the other in the exact same amount of time, but they feel totally different.
Well, that's because you have actually put in the effort. You're probably still using interpolation at a couple different points. You're just changing things up a little bit, as you showed. So, still, it is those little differences. It is a tool to be used in the appropriate setting. Honestly, that should be the focus of your video then, is say, hey, everything in its proper place. There's a reason why all of this is done. Well, there's a reason why we hold to a certain frame rate in particular moments. Please respect that. Focus on that and you'll be fine.
One of them was made by Dane, age 2. The AI has no concept of easing into or out of movement, and so it introduces boring, sterile timing that conflicts with what the animator intended, disrupting the flow and, ironically enough, making the motion jerkier.
Well, I would more comment on the blurry nature of it. I'd be curious to know how you set up the objects, though, because I remember, at least in one example I can think of off the top of my head, not going to name it again because I'm being cheeky, it was a case where the animators effectively created static objects that all made up a character, and which ended up causing a bit of problems in their process that led to all sorts of, well, led to some animation errors if nothing else, because by virtue of that, it's a matter of saying, okay, well, we have these individual pieces that we can either group together for interpolation or can use independently, to where the blurriness that we saw with the guy's hand as he was raising it in the interpolated stuff, in order to avoid that problem. So effectively, creating a situation in which the interpolation will end up helping more than hurting.
And harder to understand. It always just looks lifeless and unnatural.
That looks so bad.
But wait!
Just say it.
It gets worse. The issues with timing get significantly worse on animation that wasn't done entirely on ones. Let's say it's on twos. The AI doesn't smooth anything between the first and second frames of a single drawing because there's nothing to smooth. They're the same picture. This means that what was originally a perfectly fine 12 FPS animation is now a janky mess that constantly alternates between 12 FPS and a blurry, ugly 48, 4 times its original speed. It creates this.
Wait, so hang on a minute. So why 48 specifically? Because maybe I'm just used to a video game context, but why not 60? Guess that'd be the real question, depending on the program being used.
Awful artifact where now, instead of a few frames implying a smooth movement, a lot of frames instead imply this gross, janky one.
Alright, I'm seeing the
complaint
complaint now.
that's what's happening, but you can definitely feel it, because it feels bad.
It's less severe for 3D animation. So for 2D animation, I'm seeing your point. I'm not convinced it's a problem for 3D animation, though.
You know people get paid to do this, right? Like, in between animator is a job title.
Yes. Which is exactly why people would be looking to save money, because labor costs are the most expensive thing ever. I hate to be that guy, but corporations are going to do what they want to, if they can get away with it. So, good on you for sticking up for yourself, but still. And for fellow animators, but all the same, this is something to be mindful of.
If you tell the computer to fill in the gaps, how do you think it's going to do it? You think it's going to pick up on all the little details, tiny nuances, an in-between animator at yada, titmouse, whatever the fuck is getting paid to notice? Look, if I take my arm and I go like your brain fills in the gaps. It sees the movement, and a good in-betweener should be able to fill in the gaps by emphasizing the timing, the arcs, everything. Computer don't see any of that. All it sees is a collection of JPEGs, a stupid binary game of connect the dots, and boy howdy, is it gonna connect those dots in the most boring, lifeless fucking... How do people like this?
Because it works fine for 3D animation. Next question.
This is like ordering a $30 gourmet steak and waterboarding it in ketchup.
I've known people who are like that. One of them's in the room next to me.
Like taking a picture of the Sistine Chapel and putting a fucking HDR filter on it. Fix your painting, 4K remaster, 10 million views. Why do I...
You know, I actually would be willing to commend someone for doing that as a joke, but never mind me. Then again, I'm just being a contrarian bastard.
Try. Should I even try?
Yes.
Soul shot is interpolated. Did you even notice? Because last time
Yeah.
I intentionally sabotaged the quality of my own work for a gag, I got half a dozen comments losing it over how smooth it apparently looked.
What did you expect?
Fuck! You know, believe it or not, I don't super enjoy being negative all the fucking time.
Yeah, it can be cathartic sometimes. I'm getting a little bit of that from writing a Fire Emblem Engage review. It's gonna be a long time before it shows up on the review channel, to be fair. Need to get through 3 hopes first, but still, there has been catharsis from ripping into it. Considerable catharsis of every problem I have. All right, let's just rip it all apart. It's gonna be great.
But you know what? I also don't enjoy watching an animation It's got Vaseline all over it. You know, part of what makes 2D animation so appealing is its absolute clarity. It's the fact that you could basically pause on any frame and get a fully realized illustration. It's the kind of frame-by-frame perfection that you can't get with live action that helps to make a great animated sequence so fun to look at. Before we say it, yeah, that includes smear frames. Those are very much designed to look appealing, to clearly outline a specific motion. I mean, why else would 3D animation be doing it now? Sure as
Hasn't it been doing it for a little bit now? Although I suppose in the initial period when it was still very new technology, it wouldn't be so easy to go off model, as it were, but still.
shit looks better than this. The result of feeding it into a neural network and hoping for the best. Oh,
Wait till generative AI gets even better. This is going to be even worse. Or maybe the problem gets removed and this video becomes irrelevant. I suppose we'll find out.
Wow, look at this cool animation, but wouldn't it be better if you could hardly fucking tell what was happening? I love how the Japanese and English onomatopoeia is completely unreadable. Kind of an objective improvement.
look at this. I fed the finished man back into the AI for the hell of it, and not only did it ruin the timing and deep fry the in-betweens, it can't even figure out which part of the body is which. This is a common thing that it does. Like,
okay, yeah, you slow that down.
Jesus
I can see
Christ,
the...
And I don't buy...
Okay, that's a good joke. Okay, fair enough. Now you got me. Now prove it for 3D animation.
the whole, oh, it's AI, it'll get better with time argument. First off, no.
Yes.
That's not how AI works.
An AI is only as good as its training set. It may eventually figure it out. It is not outside the realm of possibility.
Secondly, even if it was, it wouldn't matter, because that's not what the AI is fucking designed for.
Could be. That's the problem with technology. This is all maybes and speculation. We're just ending up going back and forth of stuff that may be a problem or may not be a problem, and we're not really going to know until it either is or isn't.
It was made for live action. There's a reason that the examples used to demonstrate the tech use live footage. There's a reason we already have interpolation built into our programs, yet we stick to 30 frames or less. We don't need more. Get this, there's actually animation software out there specifically designed to interpolate your work for you. Best example is Kakani, and it's pretty good. I can understand if your mind just did a pop shove it, considering how the entire video thus far has been about how interpolation bad.
I mean, I've been here saying but context, so carry on.
But there's a couple major things that set this program apart from the AI garbage. Biggest thing? With Kakani, animators are in control. When the software works well, we can let it do its thing, and when the program goes quirky, we can course correct and tweak things until they look right, as opposed to slapping a finished product into an algorithm and going, wow, cool frame rate. It's also not designed for animating at higher frame rates. Rather, it helps create regular in-between frames on 1s or 2s or whatever to speed up the animation process. Like the little man from earlier! Oh my god, it all makes sense! Why do you think some animators working in movies and games are lowering the frame rate, not raising it? Don't you think that if HFR animation
You could have done a retake on that. I know this is a more comedic video, but come on.
were a natural progression for the medium, everyone would be doing it? Pixar could start rendering their shit at 60 tomorrow if they wanted to. No one's stopping them.
They're not going to because... Okay, let's not have that on the screen. So they're not going to because it takes a very long time to render at the detail that they're looking for, even with their supercomputers. I would argue that that's the more likely reason more so than 60 FPS. And also, they don't necessarily need to render it any more than that, because I do take a hit to my render speed by keeping most of my stuff to 60 FPS, and it'll pay dividends on the video going out tomorrow, too, for reasons that I can actually showcase in this, potentially. So, actually, I probably could show that, couldn't I? Might be worth digging out towards the end of it. Either way, I probably won't worry too much. You'll see in the video tomorrow. Regardless, let's keep going.
Pixar could start rendering their shit at 60 tomorrow if they wanted to. No one's stopping them. David Productions very well could have just interpolated every single movement in JoJo, and they could have done it at a higher frame rate than 24. But they didn't. Not just because it would be more trouble than it's worth, but because it would look weird and out of place.
That's because anime does all sorts of shortcuts already. Trying to add that as another way to circumvent one of the old shortcuts would be weird.
God, gamers suck.
Excuse me?
And you know it's gamers, right? Like who else cares about frame rates?
Because gameplay matters.
It's gamers.
Because frame rate matters in gameplay. I couldn't give a shit about this actual cutscenes, but for the actual gameplay, give me 60, damn it.
Again, it's honestly just blatant misuse of a genuinely amazing tool. When interpolation is used to enhance sporting events or generate slow motion footage, it's amazing what it can do. It's just like any tool. When you use it right, it's very good. Jackhammer's a great tool. Just, maybe not for washing your car. I can already tell. There's gonna be so many people in the comments just like, I don't care, I just think it looks better, smile. Completely missing the point that even if you prefer ketchup on your gourmet steak, it's still an insult to the chef.
No, it's not. How is it an insult? Just because it's not the chef's intention, I mean, if that's what you prefer, that's what you prefer. Come on, what happened to Death of the Author?
These remasters and enhancements failed to understand that by smothering their source material in AI, they completely undermine artistic intent.
Okay, artistic intent is important. Counterpoint, Death of the Author. That could end up leading to that could lead to a much different discussion long term if we really wanted to indulge in it.
Spoken to dozens of animators about this. I promise you, it's not just me who hates this. We all do.
All the ones you've spoken to. Yes, I'm gonna be that asshole.
You know, if this is where we are with automation and AI, I don't think robots are going to be replacing us animators anytime soon.
Okay, that was a little too loud. Come on. I get the whole concept of, hey, we're gonna surprise you out of nowhere, but that was a little too loud. Come on. Knock that down about 3 decibels. Oh, hey, Statesman. How are you doing? Alright, there you are. Oh, so you're gonna slag gamers and then use a track from Smash Bros. Brawl? Yeah, thanks, guys. Oh, man. Either way. Alright, that's one video. Alright, do you need something, Statesman? Am I gonna have to edit this after all? I think I'm gonna have to edit this after all. Be right back. Alright, now that I'm done being distracted by my cat, let's move on to the next one. So, this one, I don't know too much about. Second. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by something else. So, I don't know too much about this channel. So let's see how he describes himself. So, top 10 lost bits. Alright. Retrobit Gaming. So, what kind of videos have you put out? Okay, so you're someone who likes to dig in and see, okay, this is all of the stuff that went unused in a game. Alright, neat concept for a channel. I think I might have seen 1 or 2 of these in my recommended at some point, though looks like he focuses on subject matter that I don't pay attention to as much, but still. Apparently this is something for a Sonic level. So looking at this Sonic CD prototype, so, oh, interesting. Sonic CD, yeah, there's probably a bunch of obscure stuff in there. Alright, let's take a look.
Hurry up!
Almost like 4 years ago in the before times, I made a video diving into the scrapped level from Sonic CD that we never got, colloquially referred to by most as R2. Now, many people in the comments thought they knew the real name of the level, and I've seen a bunch of stuff, but it seems like most people thought it was actually called Relic Ruin Zone. It wasn't. Anyways, since then, there's been a few new discoveries for this mysterious scrapped zone, and more recently, we may have even gotten the true original names for this zone. So, spin dash into that like button, let's check it out.
Alright, so relatively straightforward intro, given that this is only a 7-minute video, good call. Let's see what else you got.
If this is your first video on this and you haven't seen my previous one, at the sake of not just retelling the same story again, here's a quick rundown.
Thank you.
So basically, this was a zone that was scrapped from Sonic CD, and not much about it was really left over to give fans an idea of what it was. Well, at least not in the game anyway. For a while, all Sonic fans really knew about R2 came from this drawing of it that would showcase some aqueducts and rainbow waterfalls, a section of the end credits video that was cut that's thought to be based on the scrapped level, as well as some sprites that were apparently meant for it too.
Okay. For its... Wait, what do you mean by it's for its 2? As in... the second part of the zone, maybe? Well, either way. So, bits and pieces throughout the game. I'd be curious to know where that concept art came from. Most of it not making it into the final CD by the sounds of it. Alright, so see what else is in here.
For more context, I recommend giving the video a watch, but anyways, let's get to some of the newer theories and discoveries since I made that video. Alright, so let's start things off with the big stuff.
See, 60 FPS in gameplay is wonderful, look at that.
January of 2023, a Sonic fan by the handle of Master Dreamcaster had reached out to Sonic CD's director, Naoto Oshima, and had inquired for more information regarding the scrapped R2 level. Now, in response, Mr. Oshima revealed that although he didn't remember much about the scrapped level, he did recall that it was called Dubious Depths, and that apparently it was removed since it didn't match Sonic's speed. I assume meaning that it played too slowly or something.
Well, there is the whole gotta go fast bit, but the thing that, well, I think zero punctuation, well, now, actually, what is he calling it now? Fully Ramblematic, I think? So, either way, Yahtzee, formerly of zero punctuation fame, now of, well, Second Wind's extra punctuation. I think that's what it is anyway. Oh, right, no, extra punctuation was a different show. Fully Ramblematic is the replacement right now. So, short version of that, I think what he had mentioned is that speed was a component of what makes Sonic interesting as far as platforming is concerned, but it wasn't the sole focus. I can't remember much more about the quote from there, but to fill in the gaps in my mind, what made Sonic interesting relative to something like Mario was the fact that much more of the gameplay was focused around momentum. So it was a matter of, okay, I can't just jump onto the platform from a dead stop. I have to build up the momentum in order to get through this loop-de-loop. So if it wasn't able to abide by that, then fair enough. So I'd be curious to know if there was any more information beyond that.
Huh, doesn't seem like that stopped them before. Now, initially,
Precisely.
some fans were skeptical about this screenshot, and rightfully so, as it could have easily been photoshopped, and despite being a verified account, the name here lacks the verification badge in the DM screenshot.
Actually, when did this video come out? A year ago. I'm trying to remember if that was before or after Elon Musk took over Twitter, given that he's still referring to it as Twitter, although, to be fair, I still refer to it as Twitter in its current year, but still. Actually, show more. February 11th, I'm pretty sure that wasn't quite before the takeover. Pretty sure the takeover happened, I think, in March? I can't quite remember, but still, I don't think there'd be any issues surrounding that.
Apparently, though, for some iPhone versions of the Twitter app or something, the badge doesn't appear here, so this doesn't necessarily mean that this is fake.
Alright, good. You're filling in the gaps.
Fans wanted to see if anyone else on the dev team could corroborate this information. So, Alexi Angelfox, the self-proclaimed Sonic CD guy, who was actually a big help with making this video, so shoutouts to him, had asked Sonic CD's landscape designer, Masato Nishimura, or Mazin, if this information was accurate. To this, Mazin had also mentioned that his memory around this scrapped level was hazy, but he believes that what Mr. Oshima said was indeed true. And then he also just casually dropped that another initially planned name for R2 was Ridicule Root. And although, yeah, this was apparently a...
Although, I wonder how much of that is a translation thing, but... Because, I mean, looking at what we have on the screen right now, what the auto-generate came up with, Radical Roots makes more sense to me as a stage name, at least within direct English. Although, if you wanted to be fancy with the names, I suppose you could have gone with that, but given the style of Sonic overall, I think Radical Roots would make more sense.
Typo, it wasn't Radical Root or anything cool, but rather it was supposed to be Ridicule Root.
Oh, wait, what? Seriously? Huh. So much for my speculation. Okay, apparently I need to stop pausing as much, although, to be fair, probably good for me to speculate anyway, but still interesting.
Yeah. Now, apparently, Mazin is known to misremember a lot of stuff, so I'm told that everything he says should be taken with a grain of salt.
Well, if you've got more than one person corroborating it, that gives a little more leeway at least.
But since these two leads are all we really got right now, although still kind of shaky and I don't know if I'm 100% confident in saying this is downright confirmed, it does seem like we actually do have a name for R2. Now, further adding to the R2, or I guess we should start calling it Dubious Depths puzzle, are several songs that were meant to be used for the stage that were actually dropped over the years right in front of our noses, or at least partially. For starters, Mozzie had confirmed that the Little Planet track that can be played in Sonic CD's DA Garden sound test mode was actually supposed to be the song used in the present version of Dubious Depths.
I'm not super familiar with this part, so I can't speak to this all that much, unfortunately. Does Tails actually show up in that section? Interesting. Oh, neat way to get your sponsor in. Definitely less intrusive than otherwise.
Furthermore, the Techno Power
Especially for
remix
something
track
this
in the
short,
Sonic
especially
Remix
for a video
album
this short.
features a medley of Bad Future remixes of each of the zones in the game. And if you listen to it, you'll hear a different melody between Palm Tree Panic and Collision Chaos. And yep, you probably guessed it, it's thought that this might be the Bad Future version of the Little Planet track that we mentioned before.
Remix slaps, by the way. Yeah, I like it. The auto generates.
To this, on that same album is another track titled Sonic Stream that also appears to be a remix of that same song again. But this time it has a more upbeat feel, so this one is believed to maybe have been a remix of the Good Future version of the Dubious Depths track.
Yeah, I can see it. I haven't listened to all the tracks back to back as far as the good or bad future, so I can't say for certain, but that seems
Found in the
believable.
more recent release of Sonic Origins are several bits of concept art, and among them is this image of Sonic CD's Little Planet, in which we can see some concepts of each of the game's levels, including 2R here, which gives us a
is that where 2R came from? Interesting.
bit more insight into the level's design. Well, at least more than this. Anyways, here we go.
That might be more a matter of what the tile sets would look like, and that would probably be more a matter of how, well, what it would look like as far as level design.
You can see that this stage would feature an area above ground that looks like it would have had a dense forest as a background, and then in basically the same fashion as Marble Zone from Sonic 1, the above ground section of the stage would then transition to a second part which would have had the player going below ground, and this is where the root or depths part of the name would seemingly stem from.
Fair enough.
Another interesting thing that can be seen on this concept art are these percentages found above each level. Now, these percentages are apparently the erosion level of each stage, basically how much influence Dr. Robotnik has over the area. And here we can see Dubious Depths with an erosion level of 10%, right between Collision Chaos's 30% and Palm Tree Panic apparently being absolutely pure of Eggman's reach at 0%. For reference, Wacky Workbench would be 90% eroded, and both Stardust Speedway and Metallic Madness would be a full 100% eroded by
Yeah,
the
that makes
Fella.
sense.
And that's about where we stand with the scrapped Sonic CD level today. I'm still hoping that one day a prototype gets dropped that has any sort of remnants from this level still kicking around.
Depends on what all is left as far as source code is concerned, though. I don't know what sort of procedures existed back then for preserving source code, but that is something you run into with old games every now and then.
But all in all, I'm glad that we at least now have a name, or two I guess, for R2, though I think out of habit I will probably just end up still calling it R2. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out some of my other Sonic stuff, and if you'd like to hear some more theories about Dubious Depths and what it may or may not have been, be sure to check out Alexi Angel Fox's channel. I'll have it linked for you down in the description.
Well, there you go.
As always, thank you all so much for stopping by today, and I will see you in a bit.
Alright, clever. Alright. So, probably spinning more out of it than is necessary. Well, might be stretching a single topic out a little too much in that regard. How often do you upload, actually, before I make that sort of aspersion? Okay, never mind. If this is all... Never mind, then, looking at this. If you're only uploading 2 or 3 times a month, then forget anything I'm saying. Must have just been a quiet month. And to be fair, not a long subject anyway, so I suppose I can't complain too much. Alright, so occasionally you'll just do 7-minute stuff, but you know what? forget my aspersions. Seems like a solid channel. Not a lot of not focused on a lot of subject matter that I personally keep up with, apart from the occasional Sanic stuff, but still. We are? Alright, and then, as one last, well, technically second to last, but this is probably where the majority of our shenanigans will be tucked away in. So, I know, alright, ooh, this is a smaller channel than usual. So, this came out March. Trying to remember okay, yeah, Xenoblade 3 must have been out by then. Hopefully, Gilgamesh has not handed me yet more spoilers, because I already remember that, hey, look at all this unused stuff for Xenoblade 1, and then you hear, oh yeah, there are, the definitive edition was using Xenoblade 2's engine, just to make things simple, even though there technically aren't any blades, well, except for this one guy, but that was a spoiler and a half. Either way. So, hopefully, there's no spoiler content in this one, but I suppose we'll find out.
Xenoblade Chronicles, a series filled to the brim with amazing characters, addicting combat, and incredible stories. Monolith Soft is known for making huge, expansive worlds, but not everything makes a cut. Unused content appears in many games throughout the industry due to either deadlines or a change in focus. This content can include game mechanics, concept art, or character designs. This also affects Xenoblade, with each entry having at least something left over from development. In this video, we'll be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which has a comprehensive list of changes.
Oh wow, that looked much different from the original, huh? Was that the original trailer, presumably?
A plethora of unused assets. These changes could have been because of Xenoblade 2's tight deadline in winter 2017, or any other reason. This video is going to be hefty, so get some popcorn and relax. Big shout out to those from the cutting room floor as a resource for many of these changes and assets. But before we get into this, did you know that only 12% of you guys are subscribed?
Yeah.
Be sure to click the subscribe button and leave a comment for more content like this.
Yeah, honestly, it's been a long time since I've heard that bit before. Well, why am I saying before? It's been a while since I've heard that bit. Still, you can hardly blame people for doing it. It certainly worked. Still, either way. And I guess this is gameplay for 3. Very curious to see what this ends up looking like. But once I get to it, in 2 years from now at this rate. Oh, it's gonna take so damn long. Hang on, how many recording sessions do I have for the second game right now? Let's see, I've got 120.5 hours recorded that I still need to look over. Technically 120 based on what I was able to see to a couple days ago. Oh man. And then that's based on something I recorded 5 sessions ago. Oh man. Okay, so I'm at number, well, either way, I can count it all up later. I've got the sheet in front of me, but it's a little wonky as far as the numbering is concerned, because some of this, all the Torna stuff has been taken care of editing-wise, so a little weird on that count, so I'm not going to go through the mental math and figure it out right now, but still, I got a ways to go on this one. It's probably not going to be for a couple of years if I wait to do 3 until after all the Let's Play content for 2 is done.
Appreciated. You'll be helping me out within the algorithm and my goal of getting 10k subs by the end of 2023. Alright, that's enough introductions to shilling. Let's dive in.
Indeed.
There's no better place to start than with designs. There are a bunch of unused designs for the main cast and some rare blades, thanks to some special art after completing Torna, and more importantly, the oldest records art book that was released a few months later after Torna's release.
Alright.
Well, let's begin with the protagonist of our adventure, Rex. Rex's original design was similar to the design we have today, but had some stark differences. First, Rex was supposed to have blonde hair compared to the final game's brunette color. This was probably changed to differentiate him from Shulk, the protagonist of Xenoblade 1.
Depending on, I wonder if that might harken to anything specific with the character design then. Because to be fair, if memory serves, they didn't have Adam's character design locked down yet either, so I doubt that would have much of an influence. So part of me wonders then if they may have had Rex be planned as something more important if they had decided to go a similar route story-wise to Shulk and the connection to, how things end. Let's put it that way.
salvage suit was a little different as well, with a purple.
Okay, is this... Hang on, are the subtitles auto-generated, or... Actually, I might be able to find out by clicking on it. Let's see. Subtitles. Huh. Interesting. So somebody else must have put in subtitles then, because it seems that whoever did... I wonder if they were put in at some point by... Well, were they put in by somebody else? Or... I wonder if the auto-generated would ironically lead to something different, because they are substantially different. Interesting. Usually I don't have them on at all, but still. Let's just switch them to auto-generated. That looks like it might actually be more accurate, funnily enough. And it could lead to
color
amusement.
scheme compared to the final game's blue, it had some straps in the back, which was probably the piece of clothing that would interact with the world around him, as Saito stated in interviews prior to the game's release. The biggest change is the Aegis core on Rex's chest, which is pink compared to the final game's emerald color. The reasons for these changes in Rex's design is unknown. Next up, we have Pyra, who had a slew of changes to her design. First up, we have the design that was seen after completing Torna.
You don't need to throw in the sound effects from the characters as they're showing up on screen. My general feeling is that it's best to avoid overlapping dialogue if you can, because the focus should be on your voice. And when you have something that conflicts with that, like another voice speaking up, it can be much more difficult to hone in on, okay, which one am I supposed to be paying attention to? Just a personal gripe. It's also the reason why when I'm doing my own editing, I generally avoid, if I've got background music on, I generally avoid using anything that has lyrics on. So I don't mind a choir necessarily, if they're just doing, I guess, the usual, well, generic oohs and ahs, perhaps, but otherwise, yeah, best to keep background dialogue to a minimum, or better yet, to time it more so with what you're saying, and better, well, more tightly integrated in with what you're saying. I don't know, just me being prickly over editing. I say as I'm not particularly complex with my own editing, to be fair. This is unironically more complex than most of what I do, but then again, I also cover a very different, well, I have a different objective with what I'm trying to edit, to be fair. So I'm just looking to, I'm usually just doing reviews and just trying to show, okay, this is the important information, let's just focus on exclusively this, let's not overly complicate it. Whereas with this, you are trying to offer a comparison between Pyra's actual design and some of the concept art they had for her. Either way, just me going off on tangents. Let's get back to it.
This design consists of Pyra's hair in twin tails and is more futuristic than the one in the final game, along with the pink core crystal seen within Rex's design.
Not necessarily out of
The core crystal
place.
is shaped differently, as it had a more angular shape compared to the Zohar shape in the final game. The color scheme is different as well, with reds, whites, and pinks making up the design compared to the final design's red, black, green, and gold color scheme. The one downside of the design is that it was more revealing than the one we got. I can't imagine the outrage this design would have gotten, judging on the final design's reception.
Honestly, though, I don't know if the more revealing design would have even worked for Pyra with what they ended up with on the final product, because Mithra you can justify being more revealing because she's a much more brash and expressive character, or at least much more caustic and uncaring as to what people think of her. So, in Pyra's case, she is much more reserved, so having a more reserved style of clothing probably would have worked better. Well, definitely works better, but never mind me.
Which is much tamer in comparison. The second beta design is more in line with the one in the retail release, emphasizing reds and blacks on her design with an exposed midriff, while retaining the pink core crystal from the previous design. Some variants of this design include a different color scheme, or changing Pyra's booty shorts in exchange for a skirt. Of course, this would all lead to the design we have today. Mithra's design has been the same overall, with some changes here and there. The first design change is Mithra without her cape flaps, and the Aegis sparks are there instead. I don't know what they are, but I'm just going to call them Aegis sparks.
Sure.
The next design change is the same design, but Mithra's boob window is now closed.
Huh, so they basically just gave it the Smash Bros. Treatment, huh? No wonder why they justified it then. We have Bayonetta in our game. Also, censor the Xenoblade outfit. Yeah, well, to be fair, with how small the character is relative to the window, they can get away with a little more, but still.
And now
Come
she
on.
has the booty shorts that Pyra has in her.
Yes, actually, it's kind of funny because it looks like we're running into the same problem as I had. Well, independent of the video, it looks like we're running into the same problem I was having. Well, as far as technical issues are concerned, it's just not as severe because I'm recording it offline. And in order to get around it, I also made sure that my hard drive was defragmented. So that seems to have made the difference in this case. So, although to be fair, I'm also recording this on a hard disk that is, well, full to bursting. So it's going to be a relatively short, small video, given that it's mostly still images and other people's work, but still.
Final design. The next few designs, though, they get interesting. These designs show Mifra with wings, coming in realistic and sci-fi varieties. One design seems to have some text inscribed on her chest. Sounds familiar to another form we might know. Of course, these traits of these designs were later applied to Numa, the true form of the Aegis.
I mean, I know we're doing bonus content, but well, you know what? We are doing bonus content. If you don't know most of what's already in there, I don't think you'd have to worry about spoilers. Never mind my potential complaints.
Her name written in Greek, and the Proverbs 4:18 written in Latin on her chest.
It's pronounced Proverbs.
And the futuristic depiction of wings, with them also acting like drones.
Hey gamers, Editing Pyro here. I just noticed I completely glossed over Numa's beta design in the script, so...
You could stand to bump the gain up on your voice for this section.
So, here we go. Let's start off with the design that is in the special artwork event theater. This design is similar to the final design, with the major difference being how revealing it is, with Numa basically wearing a two-piece, along with the drones being more angled like wings. The next two designs are in the Allers Records art book, with the first design being a variation of the final design, with a boob and butt window.
Of course.
The next design seems to be more mecha-inspired, with a longer tiara, and what seems to be a long cloak in replacement of the drones. Well, that's all for Numa. Back to the video.
Even Baby Gramps had some design changes, with some providing some nightmare fuel for those on.
Oh geez, what?
Now, onto the lovable Gormati cat girl, Nia. Nia has some changes with her driver and blade forms, so let's start off with the driver form. The first design is very similar to what Nia looks like in the final game.
Oh yeah.
Just without her hood, her final design has, along with having some straps on her sides, similar to Rex's concept design.
Oh yeah, because my understanding of the art process in general is that when you're trying to design a character or really get a look down, you'll do what in the drawing world they call thumbnails, effectively low-res images of, okay, so I want to try and get this particular thing working, and concept art, I believe, falls into that, where it's a matter of saying, okay, let's throw a bunch of different ideas in the works and see which one sticks, and eventually settle on something that we're going to use as the final image. So these concept arts don't necessarily reflect, well, in thinking about it, these concept arts don't necessarily reflect any particular ideas. Well, they might reflect particular ideas, or they might just be stray thoughts from the art team in general. Could be any number of reasons for why they look the way they do. Either a matter of trying to accentuate a particular part of their personality, or just trying different designs to see what would look the coolest, that sort of thing.
Another design shows Nia in a similar outfit to the last design, now the straps are gone. The major difference between these two designs is Nia now has a scraggly hairstyle, drastically different from the bob cut that she has in the final game.
So making her look more childlike then by virtue of that. Interesting. Huh. Probably would have contrasted to, actually, that could have led to a really interesting contrast between how she's depicted as, well, as the sarcastic jerk, at least especially initially. That would have led to a major contrast. Oh, I almost would have preferred if they had given her scraggly hair. Okay, that sounds hilarious.
Along with an added scarf. On the contrary, Nia's blade form didn't have that many changes to its design. One of the changes was adding a black bodysuit to cover Nia's chest and legs, while one kept her chest covered while providing a midriff and giving her booty shorts similar to Pyra. But this next design is quite the departure from the other two. It has a Japanese battle maiden-like look. It's kind of cool.
Well, given the whole, well, given the design of her sword, I don't necessarily blame them for going that route.
Very sick. I kind of wish it was a costume for challenge mode for during Xenoblade 2's run.
Oh yeah, I have actually unlocked all those. Update on the Xenoblade 2 stuff, since that I know Gilgamesh will ask if I don't say anything at the end of all this.
That'd be very cool. Grillmark, on the other hand, he didn't really change much. The major difference between his concept and the Grillmark we have today is his armor had a different color, and it was slightly different. Tora himself didn't really change, besides his initial design not having his now trademark Tomahawk.
What?
But he has different designs for his swimsuit costume. Best Girl Fan Tora. That can be acquired.
Oh right, I haven't seen that yet. What the hell is that?
You might be thinking that these designs were also in the Ulrus Records art book, but no. These designs were found in the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition Collected Works art book.
Wait,
were
what?
these designs
Why?
here in the first place when Tora never appeared? Who fucking knows? But these designs include Tora wearing a one piece with a floaty and
why
V-string swimsuit.
Why?
This image is quite expansive.
Why is this on my screen?
There are no speech bubbles here.
Okay, good edit.
But now, moving on to his artificial creation, Poppy. Poppy had a lot of changes between her three forms.
Oh yeah, I can
Common changes
imagine.
with these three forms is that Poppy was initially supposed to have brown hair and blue eyes, compared to the purple hair and orange eyes he has in the final game. This can be seen throughout various early assets, but we'll go over that later. Starting with Poppy Alpha, she has multiple early designs, with Poppy just wearing a cloak with a flower, and another design having Poppy Alpha wearing a maid outfit.
Yeah, if they really wanted to lean into that. So, I wonder if there could have been a point where Poppy would have actually been wearing the maid outfit. I could see that easily being a spin on the introductory scene once she's first powered up, especially given the mentality involved. Although, honestly, I wonder if it would have worked better if Poppy Alpha had the cloak over her as well, to effectively mask over her nature and leave her as this mystery until you actually get into combat and you see the mechanical body. That could have been interesting as a spin. Especially would have helped keep Poppy under the radar, especially when, in order to avoid attention from people who would think, artificial blade, how's that work? Though, to be fair, Tora isn't exactly shy of it and would want the world to know about it, so I don't think it necessarily makes sense from a characterization standpoint, but interesting to think about.
This maid outfit design might have been the inspiration for Poppy QT?
I could see it.
Makes sense, but, that's just me.
Looks fairly similar,
Quantum
so...
Techno Champion Pie form, or QT Pie for short.
Yeah. See, that's why we did the auto-generated right there.
Changes than her two forms combined. The first design is similar to the one we got in the final game, but Poppy is wearing a bikini top instead of the leotard in the final game.
Am I gonna run into something similar if I... Actually, wait, I haven't looked at all the costumes yet. I have unlocked them, but I haven't looked at all of them. I'm not gonna find something crazy in those, am I? Guess we'll find out, won't we? Eventually. 2 years from now. Your time, anyway.
The second design follows the evolution of Poppy QT's design, the maid dress, and it shows Poppy Cutie Pie having twin tails in a maid-styled bikini, with another variant adding an apron to the design, giving it this kind of battle maid-like look.
You would not wear that into battle, but never mind me. Anime.
The third design is similar to the final design, keeping the maid-like frills from the second design in the bikini, but these next two variants add the scarf that we all know and love, with the second variant having what seems to be the Japanese character for flower. Onward to the Special Inquisitor of Morardane. Morag didn't have that many drastic design changes, besides having this kind of sick-ass cape.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to change Morag all that much, given that she's a representative of Morardane as a whole. So I suspect on that count, there wouldn't necessarily be a whole lot of variation that you could have thrown onto her design, because you still have to have it unified with the Morardanian soldiers, and still keep her unforgettable. Yes, I had to throw that in there. Sue me.
Kind of wish it was there.
Agreed.
Bridget also had some changes, mainly with her dress.
I could see that.
Zeke didn't have any drastic concept changes because you can't change perfection, but
Cringe.
Pandora sure did. Pandora's initial design had more of a witch or alchemist-like look compared to her steampunk-inspired design that is present in the final game.
Given Zeke's mentality, that absolutely would not have worked, so what they went with instead works better, but fascinating. I wonder if Zeke was planned to be a very different character then. Although, to be fair, the design of the character and the reason for the eye patch could be any number of things. They just decided to lean into intentional cringe instead, but never mind me.
Well, this wraps up the designs that have changed for the main party, but we still have the rare blades and some Torna characters to go. Starting with the rare blades, we have a Geon. Geon's concept seems to show a different design, with him looking more human-like, covered in an armor suit with...
Actually, given the facial structure, it wouldn't look out of place along the machina. Fascinating.
Some blue tubes coming out of his head in the back of the suit. Percival had some sick design concepts, with him having more
okay, that's excessive.
Samurai/shogun look.
That one looks crazy.
And these two designs, Cassandra
a
had
bit
a
over-designed,
design
in my
night
opinion.
and day difference from the design we got in the final game, with this concept lacking many of the Egyptian and Japanese influences that Cassandra has today. The same can be said about Azami and her concept design, with Azami's concept seeming to have some Indian influences before becoming the doll, literally and figuratively, we know and love today.
I dispute the love part. Azami creeps me out, but never mind that.
Newt's initial concept design seems to be of a human imperial officer, which makes me wonder how we went from this to this.
Magic.
Japanese artists are really interesting, aren't they?
They know their
design was
audience.
Initially supposed to be a human before becoming an anthropomorphic fox lady. Shiba's concept was similar to her design in the final game, with a few notable differences. Shiba's twin drills turned into water at the midpoint, along with her having a bigger crown. Electra had a few design changes, with one of them giving her this hood, which kinda looks cool. Still wouldn't make me use Electra though.
Yeah, I can... Well, I bumped her up to S+ in case I needed her for the ridiculous block rate, but then again, I could go to Cassandra for that as well. Although, we'll see how it turns out. I might still use it in certain cases, but... I don't know. I guess we'll see what the challenge battles require from me.
Finch was supposed to have pants at some point, but got dropped. I have no idea why. Florin went through a plethora of design changes, with some having a cape that I wish they had kept. I'm sorry, guys.
I feel like that would have been excessive for him.
I like capes. But onward to...
That would have been way too showy for
what
him.
you guys were anticipating. Dahlia. Dahlia had a ton of design changes, with one design looking like an ice queen, one giving her a younger appearance, or one just going full rabbit mode.
Of course.
The final design seems to be a fusion of the human and furry bunny concepts, which is... I don't know, man. I'm just not the biggest fan of Dahlia's final design. Poppy Buster was going to have a different mech design, with two of the designs looking like something straight out of Xenogears to me. Along with some sick weapon concepts, which...
Yeah, I feel like they could have done a lot more with Poppy Buster than what they went with. I like the idea of it being a mecha that... version 2, I guess. I can't remember the exact term. Could sit in, but I feel like it may have actually worked better if you had a design which Poppy literally rides on top of rather than inside. I feel like that could have led to more interesting designs, at least from a conceptual standpoint. I don't know how difficult it would be to animate, though.
Is a crime, as they delegated him to the pits with a shield hammer. Cosette had a plethora of concept designs, with many of the designs lacking the horns that she has in the final game, with one looking like straight out of Genshin Impact, and another turning her into a fox.
Interesting. Given where they ended up going, oh yeah, I still need to bump her up to S+ for a particular battle, don't I? Because apparently, damage over time is something that people have used to try and get past really tough Bringer of Chaos fights. Doesn't seem to be the main strategy that's used, to be fair, because couldn't tell you much about damage over time before, but still. Either way.
Niall had a design that was a more adorned with various articles of clothing, with one huge detail being...
Wait, adorn or adult? Because I feel like the way you phrased it left it ambiguous as to which it should be, but never mind me.
The crown that he wears. Laura didn't get that many changes, besides one design having her having a sick-looking cloak.
Okay, someone on the concept art team really likes cloaks. That's what I'm learning here.
Sorry guys, I like cloaks and capes.
So did the concept artist.
Hayes had an amazing looking concept design, with her looking similar to a Malthus, which makes sense within the context.
Yeah, but the problem is that since we know that Hayes was initially Laura's blade, it wouldn't have necessarily worked unless... Because, actually, how does the clothing on a blade work? Is it something that is a core component to them? If not, then you probably could have gone something like that for when Hayes is bound to a Malthus. Perhaps the influence that a Malthus's genetics have on Hayes. Because isn't that the whole idea that the core crystals in bonding to another creature, whether it be a monster or a sentient being like a human, isn't the whole idea that, hey, we're going to read the genetic material and process it in some manner, with it being admittedly rare for Hayes to be such a close copy to Laura, but at the same time, I do wonder if it could have been an interesting design if there had been an influence from a Malthus in either personality or appearance by virtue of that. It would have been extremely rare and potentially stretched the suspension of disbelief, but still potentially interesting.
Lastly, Adam had some changes to his armor and had various hairstyles. It's honestly very interesting to know all about these design changes and with what could have been. One day, I wish some of these concept designs get put into like challenge mode for a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Definitive Edition.
I feel like a Definitive Edition wouldn't necessarily make sense unless they... Well, honestly, given that... Actually, are they still using the Xenoblade 2 engine for 3? Because if they are, then the only thing that would make sense to me is if they went through with a future update, or maybe added something after the fact, because I'm trying to think of what you would add to Xenoblade 2 in a, quote, Definitive Edition. Because I feel like that would be... It made more sense for something like the first Xenoblade game because you're dealing with the restrictions of the Wii. But you don't really have those restrictions anymore. So it would be a long time unless you somehow made everything into VR and that just became, well, either AR or VR became this golden standard or something. But I don't see a Definitive Edition ever happening.
I think that'd be very cool. But it's time to wrap up designs. Onward to
the Treehouse
Prior
build?
to launch, Xenoblade 2 had a special presentation at E3 via the Nintendo Treehouse. This build of Xenoblade 2 is less polished than the final game, of course. It contains a lot of interesting changes. So let's take a
lot of placeholder art by the looks of the
in the
driver
first clip with Rex Empire and Gormott, the time of day is spelled out, whereas in the final game is indicated by an icon. The special weather icon and the time of day icon was also in this build, so it was probably removed because redundancy.
Hello gamers, Editing Pro here again. I just completely forgot about the icon for the Cloud Seas Depth. This is also not in the E3 build. Just wanted to point that out.
Unless that's it right there next to morning, but still.
The blade switch and current objective buttons are also different, with the ZL and CR buttons being transparent on the inside compared to the final game where they're filled in. The next section shows the menu that was completely different from the one we eventually got.
Honestly, I might have preferred them setting it up like that to save me a button press, but then again, depending on how many buttons they had, well, given how many buttons they had to leverage, that might have been for the best.
It would have a red outline upon hovering over them compared to the glow in the final game. There is also a return to the game prompt on the bottom of the menu using the B button, which would make sense as this is a single menu compared to the final game's many menus.
Yeah. Given how many buttons they had to use, it probably is best that they fragmented it like that. And it's actually kind of interesting to the whole CRPG versus JRPG discussion that's been had during live streams before, where I'm very much used to CRPGs where, alright, you got the keyboard and mouse, lay everything out, use the mouse to help traverse through things and pick things out more easily, but when you're confined to a controller on a console, that's not necessarily an option, so here we are.
Selecting characters and changing party order works exactly how it does in the final game. but the party order screen looks cleaner than it does in the final game, along
Yeah,
with
that
a
looks
glimpse
nicer.
of Poppy Alpha's icon with the blue eyes. Within the early menu is a tab called Encyclopedia that is nowhere in the final game. Maybe it would have housed the Blade album, as it is imprisoned in the Blade tab of the menu? Around the 9-minute and 29 seconds mark, we get a quick glimpse of the driver menu, which has completely different icons for enhancing arts, selecting blades, affinity charts, accessories, and pouch items. Throughout this build, we see early designs of various common blades. Most of these designs have a different art style, along with a different pose. Next up, we have blade summoning. The blade summoning menu doesn't look too different visually, with one of the key differences being the lack of the blade summoning theme, and an early version of Gormon's theme playing in the background. The next difference is
that's
the common core
what's
crystal
playing right now?
being called unsigned core crystal, which of course doesn't appear in the final game.
If it says unsigned, that could easily be a work in progress placeholder thing, because it looks like there were placeholder icons for the driver arts as well in the earlier UI elements we saw, so that's probably all it is.
The blade summoning also gives us a quick glimpse of an early save icon, which is a green circle instead of the unique core crystal icon. After the common blade is summoned, we get a quick glimpse of a different blade list. In this build, the blade list is in a 7x3 tile arrangement rather than the 5x3 arrangement in the final game.
Well, given that Rex's arm is partially covering that one, probably for the best that they shortened it. Although, I feel like you could have at least done... I guess depending on the size of the blade, you may have wanted to keep it to 3x5, but I feel like you could have done 3x6 if you really wanted to, but that might have made things a little too cluttered there.
The blade rarity is also not present in this build when the blade stats are shown. Alright, that's enough menus. Back to the exploration and combat of the build. The demo starts off with Rex and Pyra, as I stated before, but Rex doesn't have the X-shaped core crystal on his chest. This was probably not in this build, as that plot point wasn't revealed till later on in our direct. Once Rex engages in combat, many changes can be seen from this build to the final game. For starters, the UI detaining Rex's health and levels is completely different, as the bar is shorter, the level icon is angled.
It's not that bad.
Next,
it's not
we have
that
your
different.
icons, which were probably placeholder icons until
Exactly.
they all got their own unique icons later in development. Later on in the demo, we see the early icons for break, launch, the healing art icon, and in the E3 trailer, the icon for topple. The status for the reaction effects were also overhauled from its initial orange to the purple we know today. I'm honestly very glad these icons got overhauled. They kind of felt very devoid of character. The enemy health bar is also slightly different in this build, with it having a border instead of the glow like it has in the final game.
Hello gamers, Editing Pro here once again. I just recently found this early blowdown art icon, and I want to show this comparison between the E3 build and the final game.
And there are differences that the blade arts given by blades like Critical Up are named after the voice lines in this build. For example, Accuracy Up is Eagle Eye in the E3 build. The same goes for driver arts, as Power Swipe was Power Slide, and Jaguar Slash was Jaguar Scratch. The auto attack damage numbers was also changed
good changes.
from their initial black outline to a blue outline present in the final game. Once Rex gets the special gauge to level 1, we can see that the text for the special isn't properly oriented, and more importantly, is named differently. But speaking of names, all the blade specials in this build all have different names. Flame and Blaze became Heat and Burnout, Shard and Virus became Stone and Pandemic, Toxin, Steam, and Poison became Aqua, Steam Bomb, Venom Water, Gust and Plague became Wind and Final Disaster, and Chill became Ice. I prefer some of the final names of the specials as it gives them more flavor than just something like Toxin or Gust, but something like Chill becoming Ice, it's the same thing, but what's the point of change? And whatever. The next thing we see is Rex executing a Blaze special, and whoa, that looks considerably different than what we got in the final game. The Blade special QTE is transparent with rings instead of the dark blue and light blue circles in the final game.
How did it look in the original version of Xenoblade 1? Because what they're showing right now doesn't look out of place in the definitive edition for Xenoblade 1, but I can't recall what it looks like on the Wii version.
Once the battle is concluded, we can see more differences with the experience and weapon point icons, with the EXP icon being blue instead of gold, and the weapon point icon being considerably larger than it is in the final game. When Rex picks up gold, it displays the number of the amount of gold acquired plus the word gold in caps, compared to the final game that just displays the amount of gold. Picking up any item also plays a placeholder sound effect from Xenoblade X. Also earlier on, when Rex defeats the Caterpillar, it dropped a core crystal, which has a generic item icon compared to the unique icon in the final game.
Yeah, and looking at unsigned, I'm guessing that that is a placeholder text then.
The level up graphic is also different, with it appearing on top of the character instead of on the character's health bar. Next up, we have the collectible and container icons, with both icons looking less refined than they do in the final game.
Hello gamers, Editing Power here once again. I just want to give a quick correction on the containers. The containers were actually renamed to treasure troves and have a completely different icon than it does in the E3 build.
Oh, okay, good for you to bring that up.
You might
I
see a
wondered
reaction
about
effect
that.
called stagger, and at first, you might think it's a completely different reaction effect that went unused, but it happens to proc a break onto the enemy, which can mean that break was initially called stagger earlier on in development.
That would honestly make more sense from a practical standpoint because, I mean, I'm trying to remember, it was break in Xenoblade 1, so it makes sense to be more unified with that, assuming that it was the same on the Wii version as well, which I have no reason to think otherwise. Still, I think stagger does make more sense because the idea is you stagger your opponent before you topple them, so I think from a semantic standpoint, it does make more sense to use stagger for it instead of break, but what do I know?
We get to see the Treehouse team fight a unique monster rolepool called Rambunctious Velcro. This guy does not appear in the final game, neither do rolepool enemies in Dormont, as the earliest you can encounter them is in Moradane. And I think that wraps it up for all the major changes within this build. Some minor changes like the changes in the hangar of the Titan battleship, and the lack of Dougal when fighting his blade. But a lot of graphic and UI changes within a span of a few months of this build and the final game. But in this instance, we actually have a reason to why these changes happened. Xenoblade 2's lead UI designer left Monolith mid-development. Yeah, which would explain the...
Hang on, let's read the full quote.
Monolith.
Alright. I believe it was more the passion in the workplace. Up until now, our characters always took a beating, so we said this time we won't let you guys complain. That was promising to see. However, on the other hand, things didn't go well with the UI. We lost 3 programmers in the middle of development. Jeez. I wonder what the context for that earlier comment was.
Mid-development. Yeah, which would explain the unintuitive menus we got in the final game, which could take some time to get the grasp of.
Yeah.
But this build also made me appreciate some aspects of the final game's UI, especially in combat. Now that we're done with that, onward to...
Yeah, honestly, the combat interface isn't that bad now that I'm used to it. I wish the Blade Affinity menu were handled differently, because it would be much nicer to see at a glance, okay, what can I actually work on as far as this blade is concerned, instead of just having to keep hitting either having to work with the right analog or just keep having to hit, I think it's either left analog or I think is it the bumpers or the triggers that I have to hit in order to go up and down. Either way. There's a Cheeto. Come here, dude.
Alright, on to some cutscenes. There aren't many cutscenes that were changed from the final game, but the changes are interesting nonetheless. The first cutscene change we have is the now infamous cutscene with Rex charging at Malos. In the reveal trailer, Rex's expression was more flattered than the one we have in the final product, which is a whole lot more expressive. Next cutscene is Mithra standing by herself in the Elysium simulation. This cutscene does not exist within the final game, and I've always wondered why it was cut. That's all the cutscenes within the reveal trailer. Now onto the E3 trailer. The first cutscene is a slow pan of Rex looking towards the World Tree, which was probably made solely for these trailers.
Yeah, that would make sense.
The next cutscene we have is...
What was that weird editing glitch? To be fair, I've made mistakes like that before, but still.
...is of Pyra and Rex falling into what is presumably the Orion Titan, with Pyra calling for Rex and both reaching their hands out for each other. This cutscene was not present in the final game for a reason unknown, similar to the Mithra shot in the reveal trailer. But speaking of Mithra, the final cutscene change is of a cutscene that is present within the final game, that is the first cutscene of Chapter 4 of Pyra explaining the Aegis War backstory. The shot of Mithra standing on top of a rock was changed, as in the trailer, it was shot in full color, unlike the monochromatic color scheme in the final game.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to make it look like, oh, this is a flashback, so that might just be a change that was made for the trailer specifically.
Forgot to mention this last scene with Nia and Tora charging toward Morag and Bridget in what looks like to be an alternate version of the water tower scene, which includes the original "Take This." This change was changed along with the retake of "Take This." A lot of cutscene changes that were probably done for the better. Boosted the quality of these already amazing scenes. I still wish the Rex Empire falling scene was still kept in the game though. Now that the cutscenes are done, on to the real meat of the video. That's
the
right,
unused assets?
unused graphics and assets. And Xenoblade 2 has a ton of them. The first graphic is called accessory_0, which shows some early icons for, well, accessories. Next we have some early art icons that are very similar to the icons from Xenoblade X, with arts 10 through 15 having placeholder icons. This next image, named Aura's Guide, BG_dummy_.
Also, what is the music that's playing right now? It sounds like a smooth jazz version of the Orion the Orion Overworld. Either way.
0 was
Wonder
supposed
where
to
he
be the
got it.
background texture.
Actually, let's see if he sourced it. Hang on a sec. You source it? Source the remixes you use, dang it.
For a mode called Aura's Guide. What is Aura's Guide, you may ask? We don't fucking know, but it must have not gone very far before getting scrapped.
I mean, to be fair, there was a Collectopedia within the first game, so maybe that's what it was about, or maybe something akin to that.
The next image is named Battlescale_icon_0, shows some placeholder images for arts within combat. Next up is this image named BL_face_element_base_0, which suggests this was used for the backgrounds for blades, as these squares have a color that matches each element in the game.
But wait, what's the ninth one?
Along with BL standing for blade. The next image is another blade related graphic named BL_Kizuna_Ring_0.
Alright, that must have been what the Blade Affinity chart used to look like, given the nature of it.
That shows off a very early version of the Blade Affinity chart.
Oh yeah.
The next graphic is also blade related, as it seems to be the full background version of BL_face_element_base_0, and is named BL_plate_element_BG_0, which was probably going to be used for full blade art backgrounds, as this image suggests.
Alright.
The next graphic is named CMN_KizunaGauge_X, which looks like an early version of Trust. Judging from these graphics and its
could be the party gauge. Actually, no, there's not too many entries in that for it to be the party gauge.
file name being linked to the affinity chart, it might have been a visual indicator of how much trust you have with your blade.
That would have been nice.
Affinity chart. The next is an unused lock named CMN_lock_0. Just a lock. Not really that interesting.
Probably something related to the Blade Affinity chart.
_mer_0 is an early Merc group icon for Merc missions. The next two graphics show an early playtime and gold symbols, both named _CMN money_icon_0 and CMN.
I wonder what the CMN
_icon_0
acronym is supposed to be.
Next graphic is named collection_type_0, which shows early icons for the various items you can collect on the collectible nodes throughout the game. The next graphic is interesting. It's a collection of hearts going from empty to full, as is named compatibility_0. You can infer that these graphics could have been used for the return of the party affinity mechanic from previous entries, but was scrapped for unknown reasons. The next graphic,
well, given the nature of the heart-to-hearts this time around, probably for the best,
is named DR_KizunaRing_0, which is an early version of the driver affinity chart. Driver_bus_0 shows art of the drivers that were in the party at some point, with an unshaded Zeke and Morag. Another interesting graphic is coming up, with dummy_blade_0 showing an unknown female character with the word blade in the middle. Who is this mysterious woman? Was she an early version of Pyra or a character for another Monolith project? The next graphic is Dummy.
Well, the fact that you haven't linked it to anything that's come out in future would suggest that it ended up just, well, it's more likely to have been a scrap version of Pyra, but still.
_buff_0, which seems to be a placeholder icon for buffs. The next two are very similar graphics named dummy_create_blade_cmn_0 and dummy_create_blade_rare_0, which depicts Pyra as a placeholder image for awakening a blade with different color schemes for both.
Alright.
The light teal colored image is the one for common blades, while the gold colored image is for rare blades. Dummy_debuff_0 is similar to dummy_buff_0, which was a dummy placeholder for debuffs.
Alright then. So, starting to get a little repetitive just to go through these one by one. I feel like it might be better to just get a bunch of these in bulk and try and show them off, but then again, he did warn that this was a chonkers, so I guess I can't complain too much.
Dummy_driver_0 is similar to dummy_blade_0, but with an unknown male character and the word driver in the middle. Could this be a early design for Rex, or just a dummy image?
Hard to say.
Dummy_Kizunaring_0 is a dummy blade affinity chart and looks much closer to the one in the final game. Dummy_number_0 is just a bunch of dummy numbers. And equip_icon_0 is an equipment icon, which was most likely scrapped due to equipment being different from Xenoblade 1. The next image we have is face_0, which contains a lot of unfinished art of various characters.
Oh yeah, look at that. Huh. Fascinating. So it looks like Rex, Pyra, Jin, and Malus are basically the only ones that are finished among this. Wow. Huh. Fascinating. You even have an icon for disguised Pyra, huh? Neat.
We get the Poppy Alpha icon from the Treehouse build.
Actually, looking at that, it looks like there are a few rare blades that are fixed up as well. So it looks like everything from Praxis to, I think Newt's finished, so everyone in that row. Kiba looks like it's finished, Vest looks close, Adenine does, Electra does. Everybody else looks some degree of half finished. Maybe Gorg is fine, or Boreas, but still.
Along with Poppy QT with blue eyes, and a Poppy Cutie Pie with brown hair. It seems that the Mifra design with angel wings and text was also used as a placeholder for Numa, giving more evidence that this design influenced parts of Numa's design. FIM_BL_003_0 is an image of Mifra from a character design sheet, which was used as a placeholder image for Numa. FIM_BL_042_0 is an early version of the Male Axe Common Blade artwork, with FIM_BL_043_0 being the artwork we saw in the Treehouse build. FIM_BL_044_0 and FIM_BL_045_0 are early artworks of the female axe Common Blade with and without a weapon. FIM_BL_046_0 is a placeholder image for the Blade album with just the word empty. Yeah, very exciting, I know.
Yeah, very exciting. So, a lot of unused stuff. Is there anything in particular that might be worth digging through quick? So, item types, pouch items. Different pouch item looks. What else is in here? Wonder what that was supposed to be. G symbol. Okay, so presumably that would matter more if there were animal blades that could use something other than whatever the circular weapons are. Well, alright, different icons. Old concept art for, is that data? Well, that's Tora's Datapon. I can't remember his name. Sort of thumbnail list. This is where it starts to become harder to see. It looks to be an old bit of UI. Container that presumably was meant to be the cylinders used for salvaging. And then what looks to be a piece of world tree. Okay, interesting. So I'm sure that there's a lot of good information in here, but the presentation has started to wear thin. This is the part where given the dry presentation, this is the part where I'd probably get my phone out if I weren't recording this live. Well, as close to live as I dare to. So I think we'll go ahead and skip over to where we go from unused assets to voice lines. So go ahead and see what else lies within
2017. What was your favorite unused graphic? Put it down in the comments. Next, we have...
Let's show him a thing or three.
Alright, let's see what was unused.
Alrighty, we have some voice lines that went unused. So let's start with Poppy. After Chapter 4, Poppy Alpha has a voice change to sound less monotone and more human. But there are lines for a monotone version of engaging Poppy Alpha into your party.
Alpha by name, alpha by nature.
Yet, on the contrary, there is a more peppy human version of her post-battle conversation with Van Damme.
Poppy is shaped like girl, but if Van Damme happy, then Poppy is happy.
This would not be possible because of Van Damme's fate in the chapter before it. There are some unused Blade Arc callouts, like Pyre saying
Armor Veil,
despite not being able to absorb damage, and Dromark saying
Focus!
even though he can't use critical up. Poppy also has some unused callouts, like 2 versions of Quicken Arts for Poppy Alpha for the monotone and peppy versions respectively,
Quicken Arts! Quicken Arts!
along with Poppy QT having a voice line for Quicken Arts despite not being able to use Recharge Boost.
Armor Veil!
But
Good thing
leaving
you
the
put
best
in
for
the
last.
as asterisks.
Rex had a blade callout for Numa, called
Pythra!
which seems to be what the third form's name was supposed to be before being called Numa years later.
Interesting. The
In
ending
an
was supposed to be
interview with
different.
Takahashi, he states that Xenoblade 2 was originally going to have an Inception-style ending, with Rex's core crystal glowing, but it was changed to have the game end on a happier note.
Alright, let's go ahead and read the full quote real quick. So, originally we envisioned the ending sort of in an Inception style, where you would see a cutscene with Rex's core crystal glowing, and that would be the end of the game. But while making the final scene of the game, I really thought we should give players a clearer sense of closure, and I really started to come around to the feeling of ending the game on a happier note. The players have been through this incredibly long, trying experience, incredibly long, trying experience of completing the game, so why not give them a happier note to finish on? So we thought, oh, well, okay, we'll bring back Pyra or Mithra, which one should we use? Or maybe we'll bring back, what's her name, the green-haired one. In any case, we thought about ending the game with one of these female characters joining Rex again, but I decided to roll with the feeling of a happy ending of sorts, and thought that as a bonus, why not bring both Pyra and Mithra back as a bonus for the player at the end of the game. I wish they give more justification as to how that was possible, given that they're technically 2 personalities sharing the same core crystal, but, well, never mind me.
Core crystal glowing.
I
But
guess
it
maybe
was
I'll
changed
find
to
out in
have
the
the
third game.
end
Who
on a
knows?
happier note, with either Pyra, Mithra, or even Numa coming back. But after some back and forths on which one to bring back, Takahashi decided to bring both Pyra and Mithra back. But
And here's the reason why I don't use any sort of song with vocals when I'm doing audio or when I'm trying to speak.
it seems like
That's going to be
Pyra and Mithra
distracting.
may have potentially lost their memories, according to some subtitles hidden in the game. This was probably like an alternate ending thing where there's like a bad ending or a true ending.
Oh, that could have been really fascinating if they had to rebuild the relationship. Oh, that would be interesting. Because depending on how... Because Mithra could linger despite... Well, Pyra and Mithra could linger and Malus too, could linger despite the deaths of their drivers. Or at least their original drivers. So... That wouldn't be possible with how they framed it, but given the sheer trauma that Pyra and Mithra would have had to go through to destroy the orbital station, could have been fascinating.
Where either Pyra and Mithra say hello to Rex, or just state their name. One last, tidbit on the ending. The lyrics for One Last You are programmed into the game, and are supposed to play in the ending cutscene, but were left hidden for some reason.
Interesting.
And with that, we have made it to the end of another video. Xenoblade 2's early assets are so interesting on what could have been, but it's still an achievement that Xenoblade 2 released within the time frame it did, and became a beloved title within the fan base. There might be some things I've missed, so leave a comment down below, tell me your thoughts on it. and of course, any of the unused content that was in this video. I also have a Discord server that we chill, have some cool stuff, cool events from time to time, and that's the best way to contact with me.
Alright then.
I'll see you guys next time.
Oh good, he made the correct choice. I mean, you could either go with someone who acts like she doesn't like you but actually does, or someone who acts like she likes you and actually does. That is all I will say. So, one last video, and then we will be on our way to give a brief update as to what you can expect going forward, and then, well, see how it goes. And this one, as you can probably guess based on how visible this is, a regular viewer decided, hey, I haven't slandered you enough yet. How dare you? Catching up on the paragraphs from this? Yep. Hang on, what was that other one? All the game suggestions knowing you'll never play them. If you keep giving me JRPGs, I'm definitely never gonna play them, because I'm just never gonna have time for any of it. Then we stream before it reaches the boss room. What's this a reference to? Dude, I am not wrong, he doesn't chuckle, that's a guffaw. No, I'm not that mean. Also, did he just disjoint his jaw? I've never seen this bit. Cheeto, where did Cheeto go? He was in the room before. I'm not letting him out right now, but still. Why? More practical ways to kill a boss? I don't care. Yep, as per usual. Can you blame me for trying? Hey, that's my joke. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, it's just my hard disk, I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure that tonight confirmed that it's just my hard disk, but still. Which probably means I should just use my SSD for any time I'm streaming, but shh. Either way, thank you as always. So, that in mind, I guess that's all that needs to be seen to for tonight. So, 1 second, I'm gonna black out the screen briefly. And I need to do this. Alright, so, first off, a brief overview as to how things are broadly going. Greetings. Oh, I guess I did get a bit of audio. I guess it did carry through, even though I had hit the mute button on my voice volume, on my desktop in general. But either way, so, main thing that is of note. Well, actually, let me think through. Well, let's see. What are the things I need to talk about? Okay, so first of all, the obligatory How's Xenoblade 2 going update. As of a few days before this, I'm not going to say exactly which day, although I'm pretty sure I have already in a couple other streams. The main thing I've been focused on for Xenoblade lately is just grinding away. I've gotten all of the costumes unlocked at this point, and I've knocked over every unique monster, save for one quest-specific monster that's proving rather obstreperous. I think I found a solution to that one just by digging through YouTube and forums to figure out a good solution, although it will require me to go digging through do some more love source grinding to get a Blade to S+, but otherwise, I think I've got all of the core chips I need. I've got all the costumes. I've got Tora's Thought Cloud maxed out. I just need to build up the skill points a little bit for the sake of a few things, although I have the one thing I will need to show off at some point unlocked on Zeke, so we've got that going for us. At this point, the only major challenge left is one monster that'll prove obstreperous that I will hopefully have a means to destroy soon, and then all that remains after that are the challenge battles. So the end is in sight, though it is a ways away still. So that's one thing to worry about. As for the rest, actually given the circumstance, I can just go back to this real quick. So, that's the Xenoblade update. as for the update to the streaming schedule, let's see. After this uploads, we should be back to our normal shenanigans. Everything at this point should be relatively back to normal, although the next week will be a little different by virtue of which specific games I'll be streaming. I should, in theory, have the opportunity to stream on Wednesday nights, but if I am given that chance, I'm going to use it to wrap up The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, rather than focusing on continuing through Golden Sun. I'm ready to move on to the next game as far as the Saturday night streams are concerned, and to be fair, I've been at that point for a couple weeks now, probably longer than that if I'm being honest with myself. So by virtue of that, I did not expect A Link to the Past to last for as long as it has. The how long to beat ended up being inaccurate because I'm just not as familiar with it, and I suspect the reason why it showed up as such is perhaps because people were replaying it, and as a result, the metrics were a bit off, or maybe they had a guide in front of them, or were more willing to look at a guide. And to be fair, back then, there were strategy guides and whatnot that you had to physically find, or little hints as to where you can go for stuff, so that were built into magazines or released separately. So maybe that's what threw off the metrics there. Regardless of that fact, I can complain about that as much as I want, but either way, I'm looking to wrap up A Link to the Past on Wednesday if I get the chance. If I don't get the chance, I'll just wrap it up on Saturday. And then following that, next week, if I am able to wrap up A Link to the Past, there will be bloodshed. And that is all that needs to be said, I suspect. So, apart from that, the last and final update, yes, that is the same thing. Last and final update, this is Draft 5 of the Tears of the Kingdom video, which will be going up onto the review channel tomorrow. So, I've been working away at this for a while. Tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary of this game's release, and what you are seeing in front of you is a muted version of it, where I'm just going through the introductory segment, just talking through, hey, this is what it was known for, just giving the overall first thoughts on it, just saying, hey, we got a lot of high-profile commercial and critical successes, and look at this. And so just effectively setting the stage for the Tears of the Kingdom video, because I've mentioned it elsewhere, so I'll go ahead and say it again. I am someone who, gun to my head, would rate Breath of the Wild a 6 out of 10 because of my strong disdain for open world elements, and because, in my opinion, Breath of the Wild didn't do enough to work in spite of my disdain for same. So, because of that, I went into Tears of the Kingdom thinking, alright, here's the second chance. I know, generally speaking, what to expect from this game now, so let's go in with a fresh perspective and hope for the best. And turns out that Tears of the Kingdom ended up fixing a lot of the problems I had with Breath of the Wild as well, and managed to do things that I feel worked much better for someone like me. So by virtue of that, I am quite happy with how it turned out, and the review is coming along well. I've got a couple more drafts that I want to look over to just whittle through the editing changes, well, any editing mistakes, and make sure that's all good to go. Just looking at this, it looks like there aren't any obvious visual mistakes, though there might be a timing thing, or I might need to adjust the audio balance, or adjust how much time I give between phrases. Just minor changes like that to make sure that everything's on point, but otherwise, it's coming along nicely. So this time, well, tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, this video will be up, so I can always throw a link in the description or something. And regardless, thank you all for stopping by, and if I don't see you tomorrow for the publish of this video, I will see you either Monday for when I continue uploading Let's Play content, or hopefully Wednesday as we finish up The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Regardless of when I next see you, thank you all for stopping by for this very long video. Hopefully I can set it up as a premiere, and I will see you all later.